Hey, this is Melody, your East Tennessee real estate resource, and behind me, you're going to see beautiful Douglas Lake here in Dandridge, Tennessee. Dandridge is the second oldest city in Tennessee. It's located just a little north of Sevierville, Tennessee, and what's interesting is it is located in Jefferson County. And I'm here doing a final walkthrough for a client, but I got here a little early. So I was like, oh man, let's use this backdrop. You can see it's a little cloudy today, which is kind of the perfect backdrop for the video I wanted to make today. Is a lot of people assume that it is always hunky-dory here in East Tennessee, that it's always bright, sunshiny weather, that there's always these beautiful lakes everywhere we go in Tennessee, but that's not true. And so there are some other assumptions that I want to make clear about East Tennessee and about real estate here. Stay tuned. Here's a biggie that, as I am so blessed to be able to talk with many of you, either on the phone, or I get to meet you in person, or through a virtual meeting of some sort. And I'm finding that a lot of times, if you've never visited Tennessee, that it's a little bit misleading when you're looking online. I know I spoke with someone a week or so ago, and I was like, okay, can you tell me specifically what area you're looking in? And he said, well, I could be looking in Crossville, or maybe even Townsend, or maybe Greenville. And I just, like, my head was just exploding, because on a map, it doesn't look like those places are very far apart from each other. But when you're driving, that is several hours in both directions. I mean, Tennessee is a wide state. So to drive from, like, the North Carolina border almost to the Arkansas border is over 12 hours. And so if you're thinking about moving here, you really need to come visit, especially if you've never been here before, so that you can truly see that parts of Tennessee are different, even in Eastern Tennessee. I was speaking with a lady the other day, and she was talking about some property up in Bristol, and I said, ma'am, I don't cover that area, because that is a completely different area than everything south of Greenville. I'm familiar with all the property south of Greenville, Tennessee. I don't know Johnson City. I don't know Bristol, because that's a whole different world. Just like I was speaking to another lady who was telling me about Monterey, Tennessee, and I was like, okay, that's a little bit, that's a little bit out of my area too. So a lot of people assume that areas in East Tennessee are really close by. They're not. It's and I've said this before, that country miles are different than city miles. And so it takes us a lot longer to get to locations, because we can't always get there by interstate. And so everybody assumes, or I don't want to say everybody, a lot of people assume that locations on a map, and then when you get here, are really close together, and that it's no trouble to drive from Crossville to Polk County to Townsend down to Chattanooga. But that is several hours of driving, and the terrain is different, the topography is different, which leads to my second assumption. So a lot of times when I'm talking with potential clients, they'll say, can you tell me the topography of that property? And there is a spot on each of the listings in the MLS that I belong to that will tell you if it's steep, or if it's level, or if it's rolling. But that's about it. We do not know the topography of a property, especially if it's raw property, until we get there. because in Tennessee, it is literally rolling hills more times than not. When I get to a level property, I'm always in shock and I'm like, oh my goodness, I can't believe this is level. Because it might be that one side of the street is perfectly level and the other is rolling. So we don't usually carry around topography maps. They're even hard to find online, even if you're using Google Earth or some other website. So we don't always know the topography until we get there, because even if it's listed online as somebody saying rolling, that might be their opinion. When I get there, I'll be like, holy moly, that's on the side of a cliff. That's steep as all get out. So don't always assume that that the topography of a property is going to be what it's labeled as or what you think it's going to be, which leads me to assumption number 3. So I had these clients have been under contract for a house. They got their inspection report, and there was certain parts, and forgive me, I don't remember if it was a home inspection report or if it was a termite inspection report off the top of my head, but there was several areas where the inspector had marked basically obstructed. And so the first thought was, my clients were like, oh my goodness, the inspector didn't get to those areas. There's got to be something wrong with that areas. No, that's usually not it. Because you got to think about it. If it's a home that is not vacant, if it's where somebody is living, they've got their stuff in that home. They've got stuff in the closets. They've got stuff in the pantry. They've got stuff in the corner, especially if there's a basement. They're going to utilize every single part of that space because they're in the process of moving. And so when you see a home inspection report and it says obstructed or wasn't able to get to that area, that's not necessarily a negative thing. That just means the inspector could not put their eyes on that area because there are people's things there. And it doesn't always mean a bad thing. They're just disclosing to you, hey, I couldn't see this particular area because there's clothes hanging in the closet, or there's stuff on the shelf and I couldn't get to the attic access. I mean, there could be all kinds of reasons, but don't automatically assume that because that was an obstructed area that there's something wrong with it. Which leads me to number 4, and I'm running into this a lot lately. I've had a few conversations with some clients and then some potential clients, and they'll say, okay, here's what I'm looking for. And in their mind, what they're picturing is land that, or, even a yard that they are familiar with in their home state. And they're picturing that land in their mind. And so they're wanting something like that, but here in East Tennessee. And those don't always match, okay? People move to Tennessee for I hear all kinds of reasons, and I love hearing all the reasons. But there's a lot of reasons here. And so there's that assumption that, okay, the land in Tennessee, yes, it's going to have these beautiful views, but it's going to be exactly like the land here. There are so many times when I go show land with people, I get lost. And I'm from here, born and raised. I mean, I know East Tennessee. I still get lost. There are times I have to turn around multiple times, especially if it's a property that doesn't have an address, like it doesn't have the street number yet, which can be done easily once you purchase it, but a lot of times it won't. So it might just say like Highway 101. Well, Highway 101 might run for 30 miles. You don't, what? And so even if you read the precise directions that the listing agent has put, there are still times that I will get lost, I will get turned around, and I always tell my clients when I'm showing raw land, okay, there's a strong possibility that we're going to get lost, and there's a strong possibility we're going to have to turn around multiple times because we have hills, we have mountains, signal. There's certain areas where you can't even get a signal, so we're doing the best that we can. But I was showing some property. Oh my, I guess it's been about a year ago. And these people, they had told me, they're like, okay, I want to be out in the middle of nowhere. I don't want anybody to bother me. I want all of this land. And I was like, okay. So they found some particular areas they wanted to look at. We went, we looked at the land. It was beautiful. And it was out in the middle of nowhere. And I believe, if I remember correctly, they were both working remotely. So they needed to make sure they had a good signal. We found a place. It was perfect. And they said, okay, well, what about trash pickup? Sweet friends, if you're looking for land in East Tennessee and you want to be rural, 9 times out of 10, there's not going to be trash pickup. The trash pickup is going to be you putting trash into your car, into your vehicle, and taking it to the local dump, which we often call here convenience centers. Okay, so I'm saying that in jest, but also in love, because a lot of times you've got to think about these. If you really want to be out and away from nobody, and you want to be all private, that is totally up to you, but you're going to have to make what I would say some concessions. You're going to have to take care of your own trash, because more times than not, trash pickup is not going to be there. Or you might have to actually dig a well, because there may not be public water there. Assumption number 5, and I've been seeing this a lot lately too, with land, or even if there's land and there's a structure on it, maybe the structure is not completely built, or maybe it's just a garage or what have you. And a lot of times it will be treated almost as if it's raw land. There might be electricity that's ran to the structure, because most of, not all, but a lot of electricity here in East Tennessee is going to be with utility poles, which you can see in the background here. It's mostly above ground, not as much dug under the ground, which is a little unusual. A lot of people think that's unusual, but most of ours is above ground. But water, or sometimes if it's within the city limits, there will be sewage, will be at the street. But you have to compensate. You have to pay for it to be brought from the street to wherever that structure is, or where you want to put a home or whatever. And you have to call the local utilities to find out how much that charge is. And somebody said the other day, well, can you tell me what that is? I said, well, it depends on where what the county or the city or the whoever is in charge of that particular utility is. It depends on their cost. So there's not a generalized cost for the whole state. There's not even a generalized cost for the region. It really varies by municipality that the utility company is in. So I hope that has cleared up at least some assumptions that I am often hearing, as I'm so blessed to talk with you. So please make sure you like this video, share it with others, comment on it, tell me some assumptions that you might have heard about, or maybe some that you experienced when you visited or when you've moved here. And if I can help you in any way, please reach out. I would love to help you buy or sell real estate in my wonderful state of East Tennessee. Until next time.